Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the regular town meeting of the town board, April 25th, 2013 at 6:30 p.m. And we should start with this Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start with citizens' comments based on some reaction and feedback that I received last week. There are some rules that we're going to follow in order to keep the meeting moving along. And they are clearly listed on the agenda. So your name and address, and please come on up. Who would like to start?
I don't know how to adjust the microphone.
You're supposed to kneel down and talk.
I appreciate that.
I don't know how to do it either. That's super easy.
Why did last week?
Pick your height here. Getting close.
I suppose, we're close enough, I
Is this on?
think. Is this on?
That's the test.
My name is Betty Pageant, South 57, West 22641, Woodside Court. And my comment tonight addresses citizen comments. As you have before you, and I gave everyone on there, amendments to the Constitution, Article 1, Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Now, all of you said that you were going to uphold this Constitution. And yet tonight, I read in here that we are not allowed to talk about certain things. We are not allowed to address certain members of the board. To me, this is getting pretty close to violating our freedom of speech and our freedom to peaceably assemble if we clap for a well-written or well-given speech. Now, any of you can answer to that or not answer to it. I just merely wish to make that known that we are getting very close when we do this. When one person, because I don't know when the board voted on this. I have no clue when it was brought before the board and voted on this. Just like last week's, I had no clue when the rules and regulations about 3 minutes, etc., were brought before the board and voted on it. There are 5 people on the board. Each one has one vote and a voice to give and listen to the people. Now, if Mike, who is in charge of the sewers here, if I have a question about them, I'm not going to address the whole board because they may not know. But Mike certainly is going to know after he researches it. So I'll ask the question of Mike. That's all I have to say on that.
Thank you. To clarify, you can address any issue when you come up for citizens' comments. There are no issues that are off limits, and you can address the entire board.
What it says.
I can literally do this a little harder.
Mr. Chairman and town board members, I was struck last week at the board meeting by the not-so-thin veil of alliances and aligned interests of the board chair and those who stand to profit financially as a direct result of certain board actions. Last meeting, we heard from several prominent individuals and ghost landowners with large land holdings waving threats of potential annexation if they do not get certain outcomes from the board. The implied blackmail was, give us what we want or we'll take action that will cost the town financially. As I introduced myself to Mr. Merrick after the meeting last week, he said, and I quote, "You and I are seeking the same thing," end quote. I can assure you all that I am not seeking to profit from decisions made by this board. And I am not seeking to show favor to those who helped get me elected. What I am seeking is to ensure that this board does what it was elected to do. That is to act in accordance with what is in the best interest of the majority of town residents. Each of you were elected to represent the whole town's population and interest. Not simply the largest landholders, or the most wealthy, or the most influential, but every resident equally. Remember that our founding fathers attempted to establish a government based on a most important principle: for the people and by the people. That principle may have been taken away from us nationally by special interest groups seeking to gain, but I will make every effort not to allow that to happen in our town. New restrictions on citizens' comments appear to be attempting to take away the voice of the people. I sincerely hope and trust this board will see fit to ensure the voice of those who you are each elected to represent is fully heard. And as such, vote to overturn these new, single-focused, arbitrary restrictions on citizens' comments. I think it is fair to say that there's heightened sense of awareness throughout the town since the last election. I assure each of you that transparency, careful and complete consideration of your actions, fair and due process with robust input from the townspeople are the elements that will be required and demanded of this board and its chairman. Unfortunately, in the first 2 weeks in office, I don't yet see those elements being demonstrated by this town board chair. Thank you for your mindful consideration. W256 South 4875, Woodley Lane.
Folks, we're going to keep the applause down. It's not going to happen. We're going to keep decorum in the room, and if it does happen, the sheriff's going to remove you. It's that simple.
Called freedom of speech.
Sandy Hom, West 230, South 3827, Milky Way Road. What he said.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mary Gosenheimer, West 253, South 4531, Meadowview Drive. I just want to say what he said too, I agree with, and I'm against it. I don't like what's been going on here. Not at all. I think it's very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jennifer Johnson, and I live at W256, South 4560 Shadow Ridge Drive. My husband and I have lived there for almost 17 years. And what I would like to say here today is revolving around the water issue. And I firmly believe that when you're looking at a solid business plan, you also need to include and incorporate in a risk management plan. And I believe that we are not taking risk management into play if we do not go into the city's application. We need to have that as a backup. If we don't have a backup, then we put our citizens here in the town of Waukesha at risk because the water could go bad. We don't know whether or not the aquifer is going to be able to sustain the future growth of this town. And I, at one point, my husband and I, at one point, are going to want to sell our home. When that time comes, how many people are truly going to want to buy into this town if we don't have the appropriate backup plans necessary to ensure that the water supply is good? I don't know about you, but I don't want to be showering with Perrier. It just does not sound exciting to me. I want to make sure that the water supply that we have is sound, safe, and that we have a backup for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just that's one minute. Jim Cross at W248 South 6036 Deerfield Circle. There seems to be some confusion about this paragraph on citizens' comments. Most of us read it to mean that we cannot comment on any subject that is the topic of a current or a previous public hearing, which would mean all the important issues that we're concerned about. Is that not supposed to, is that a typographical error?
No, what it says is any subject that is not the topic of a current or public or previous public hearing, so you can comment on anything. So it's not the topic of a public hearing, it's the topic of anything.
That's not what it
That's
says.
still confusing. I have a degree in English and I still don't understand it.
I would welcome your suggestions. Perhaps we could rewrite it for next week or 2 weeks from now.
Some misinterpreted this to mean we couldn't talk about the water issue or the Lathers issue. Or
Certainly not.
anything in the past because those were topics of previous public hearings.
I pulled that off of a couple of different other municipalities who have the same rules. That's where the verbiage came from. If it's difficult to understand, we can always
I'll go back and get
change it.
another degree.
Thank you.
Good evening, Michael Durr, S51 W23661 Turner's Pike. There's no question that the water service area has created some of the most significant controversy in the town since the garbage collection, the town dump issue, and the Walgreens store. I'd like to preface my comments with the fact that I do see the pros and cons to both sides on this issue. And in fact, I really don't have a strong opinion either way. And I assure you, not having a strong opinion on an issue of this significance is not something that I'm used to. However, on this issue, for those who call for a referendum, I would submit to you that we just had a referendum on this issue. There is no single issue that more separated the April 2nd town chairman race than the water issue. Each candidate had their view, was very vocal about it, and were on direct opposite sides. In the end, more people voted for Chairman Merrick than for past Chairwoman Van Sack. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the referendum. While many in this room are not in favor of the current chairman's position, in the end, he won the election. He clearly stated his position on the issue, and elections have consequences. Chairman Merrick would be doing a great disservice to the people who voted for him if he so suddenly changed his position on an issue, on such a key campaign issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Walter Kolb, South 55, West 22892, Woodside Drive. I think the first thing I want to say is, do I want city water? No, I don't want want city water. Do I want city sewer? No, I don't want city sewer. I pay high rates as it is on some of the properties in Waukesha. I know what it is. I like my well, I like my septic system. However, there is also another problem. And I really want to address everybody on the board and ask this question without you even answering it. You do have fire insurance on your house. You do have insurance on your car. The reason you have that is to protect yourself if something goes wrong. Gentlemen, that's all we're asking you to do, is to protect us and allow us to at least have the option that if our water supply does go bad, and I hope it never does, but if it does, then in fact, at least we have another option. This is very important. There's one more little thing I'd like to address, and I think it's also very important, is that when these districts were drawn up, I look at XX and I look at Sunset. On the west side of Sunset, these people in that island have been designated to go into they have the option to have the city water if something goes wrong. Waukesha State Bank, on the east side of the road, this is the west side now that's going to get the water, on the east side of the road, is not in the water area. Now, why I'm so troubled by that is because one of the supervisors lives in that area, and quite frankly, he should recuse himself from this. He absolutely should. He's a good supervisor, but in this case, that's not fair. He's a have. He's going to have the water. The rest of the town are have-nots. That's not fair. And I hope you seriously look at this situation. And thank you very much for the comment.
Thank you. Chairman Merrick, I'd like to address that comment. Mr. Cole is referring to myself. My home is located on Bob Bell Court. I've previously been charged, or not charged, had a complaint filed with me with the DA, which was a bogus ethics complaint that was customarily dismissed. During that conversation with the DA, this exact issue came up, and Mr. Schimmel laughed about it and said it was political hackery that was bringing that upon me. This is the same issue. I do not, Mr. Fisher is also in the water service area. Doesn't matter, I can respond to a comment. State statute, look it up.
Anybody else?
Good evening. My name is Judy Fuller. I reside at South 48 West 23440 Merlin Lane in the town of Waukesha. I was at the meeting last Thursday evening to address the town board regarding the water supply area plan and map, but apparently there was some misinterpretation about what I said, and I would like to try to clarify my points here again tonight. I have resided in the town of Waukesha 50 of my 56 years. Therefore, I have seen a lot of changes in the town. Some good, some not so good. But as we all know, change is inevitable. Therefore, as a citizen and or taxpayers of the town, I feel it is our responsibility to try to make the best decisions we can when change is evident. In this regard, I and my colleagues have personally spoken to the owners of 121 properties now that are in the town of Waukesha about the water supply boundaries, which the previous town board redefined, which is vast difference to the sewer service area, which is part of the regional water quality plan and the land use plans, which they are required to mirror in accordance with state statute 281. Those water supply area boundaries basically exclude most of the town of Waukesha, whereas the previous plan included the majority of the town of Waukesha. We cannot understand why the previous board would have redefined boundaries which conflict with not only the previously adopted 1999 sewer and water service area map, but also the town's 2010 Comprehensive Development Plan, as well as the county comprehensive development plan and Sewer Pack Regional Land Use Plan. Sewer Pack adopted their regional water supply plan in 2010 and has a design year of out to 2035. The 235 Regional Land Use Plan serves as a basis for development of the water supply plan. Land use plans do not necessarily respect civil boundaries and therefore neither can sewer and water plans. The services have to be provided where the development exists or will be developed in the future. That is what planning is. The utility plans and land use planning go hand in hand. One should not be done without thinking about the other, as the plans are dependent on each other. The previous board had no particular expertise or right, as we understand it, to redefine these boundaries, because in fact, the administrative rules outlining these procedures have not even been written yet. It is hoped those procedures would mirror those required to amend the SSA boundaries, which include decisions and consensus by a number of units of government, not only the town. As I mentioned last week, these 121 properties now add up to 2,030 acres with an assessed value of 26 million plus, most of which should be serviced with sewer and water. And while I'm not at liberty to divulge which additional properties are going to have to make that tough decision of annexing into the city of Waukesha instead of being able to wait until the time is right for them, these tax-paying property owners feel that recently redefined boundaries for the water supply area should be revisited. The common feeling is the map should mirror the 1999 map that can be found in Sewer Pack CAPR number 100 as SSA plan, which remember the water supply plan should mirror. Is supposed to take in the local needs, desires, and preferences fully in account and provide latitude in its implementation.
Ms. Fuller, I do need to cut you off. Thank you.
This is record. I gave you a copy, Aaron. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Alan Johnson, W256, South 4560 Shadow Ridge Drive. My wife was up here a little while ago, so I'm not gonna repeat a lot of things that she said. But if you stay with what the plan is, that you don't want it, what's your backup plan? That's my question. I've asked a lot of my friends, what is the backup plan if wells do go at this certain date? We don't know. We don't know what the future's gonna bring us. Could be a year, could be 5, 10, 15 years. There are water lines that go on Oakdale from Dale Drive out to I, that the city put those in, not the town. Last night I took a drive on Center out here. There's a condominium that is by the city, but there are also fire hydrants there also. You don't know. I mean, you want to have a plan if you say no. And will the town have the funds if the EPA were to do what they did to the city? There was an article in today's paper in where the city tried to fight it. What will we do? Do you have the funds to fight the EPA? EPA will just tell you to do it. That's just all I'm asking. What is your backup plan if you continue on and do not want to piggyback on to a community that has already done all the tough work for you? And I think a lot of misconception is too, is that if you say yes to this, I think a lot of people think that the city's going to come in right away and say, you must sign up. They've never said that, not that I have heard. I might be wrong, I'll accept it, but I don't think they'll come in tomorrow and say, you have to sign up, because the town said yes. That's all I got to say. You know, what's your backup plan if you don't say yes to this? That's all I'm asking. And I haven't heard anything about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lori Longtime, W271 S3581 Oakville Drive. One of the previous speakers spoke about risk management. And I understand the concept of what she was saying, but when the policy itself, the insurance policy, so to speak, creates additional risk, then it's maybe not, there are no guarantees. There's no guarantee that the city of Waukesha is going to receive Lake Michigan water, that they will receive approval for it. There's no guarantee that the Waukesha Water Utility will be able to provide water to your specific residents. There's no guarantee on Lake Michigan water levels. However, they have been dropping, and they're expected to drop even further with the effects of climate change. The water quality, anytime you have the water quantity dropping, you also have a drop in water quality, because whatever contaminants are in the body of water are more concentrated in a smaller body of water. So it's not as if there's this magic resource out there that is going to solve all the problems. And I think there's a misunderstanding on the part of some of the residents that the town is required to put together a backup plan. We're not a municipality, we're not an incorporated municipality, we don't have to have a plan. Although I give the board a lot of credit for even addressing this issue, we don't have a municipal water supply like the city does. So our backup plan, if your particular well is failing, then you need to dig a deeper well. That's going to be expensive, yes, but it will be nothing compared to the astronomical expense of hooking up to the city of Waukesha. First of all, the city of Waukesha hasn't even been able to tell its own residents what this is going to cost them, except that they started at 164 million, and now they're going up to 200 million, and I don't expect it to stop there, that it's going to keep climbing. And that's just the cost of getting the water, getting the approvals, putting pipes in both directions. And mind you, per the Great Lakes Compact, if you hook up to a Lake Michigan water supply, you have to put it back. It's called the return flow policy. And you have to put it back, so that means if you in the town get water from Lake Michigan, you're also going to have to hook up to city sewer, and that's going to be very expensive. The city of Waukesha is not going to put supply lines out to you wherever you live, if it's close across the street or if it's far away. And the cost of doing, so you're going to be paying for your share of the 200 million, plus the cost of buying water from the city of Oak Creek. And then you're going to be paying, in addition, to hook up to city sewer, and you're also going to be paying for wherever the city boundary is now and the infrastructure is now. You're going to be paying for infrastructure to your neighborhood, your cul-de-sac, or your home. I guarantee you, you will look at the cost of drilling a new well in your own yard.
I'm going to cut you off. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to just finish that sentence. You'll be looking at the cost of drilling a new well in your own yard as peanuts compared to what you'd be paying in the other direction. I guarantee that you people in the town will not be able to continue to live in your homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Stacy Blank. I live at West 29 South 3876 Milky Way Road. I'd like to make just a few comments about the changes to citizen comments because there does seem to be a lot of confusion about this. I'm confused after what I've heard this evening. We've heard from the chairman tonight that basically we can still speak about anything. Yet when I look at what's on the agenda for this evening, it says, I'm quoting, "Citizens may speak on any subject of concern that is not," quote, "not a topic of a current or previous public hearing before the town board." So you can see why we're confused, obviously. What I would ask is that you share with us where you got that language. You say that that's from other municipalities, so I would like to know where that came from. I also would suggest that perhaps some discussion with the other board members would have been helpful to avoid some of this confusion. I, in the last couple of days, since this came out on the agenda, had the opportunity to talk to Supervisors Bansky, Wolf, and Laska, who were not aware of this language change, knew nothing about it. That would have avoided some of this confusion here tonight. And also concerns me that there was not some discussion before tonight. One of the topics that you campaigned on, Chairman Merrick, was bringing the board together, working together. I have to be quite honest, I'm not seeing a whole lot of that here out of the gate. That does concern me. So I just want to say that, you know, the citizens here, as we've all demonstrated tonight, talking about the water, talking about this proposed change that we're all concerned about, we clearly all have a voice. We clearly all want to be heard. We should be heard. So clarification on that, please. Thank you.
Thank you. It came out of the Village of Menominee Halls and the Village of Menominee Falls in the town of Vernon. Anybody else?
Angie Vansock, South 51, West 25375 Glendale Road. I'd like to address Judy Fuller's suggestion to us that the reason that people are on the list is that they are going to be forced to annex sooner rather than later. I think that's a very interesting observation on her part. This is not a matter of supporting the town, developing in the town at any point in time. This is simply developers, which include Judy Fuller, who is a developer who's taken plenty of land out of the town of Waukesha and into the city of Waukesha. We elected you to support town of Waukesha residents, town of Waukesha interests, not developer interests. And if the people on her list of 26 now million, which equates at $1.88 to about $47,000 a year, I would say that's peanuts compared to the safety of our water and our land. And if we are simply keeping developers from annexing sooner rather than later, I think that's a risk we should take. If they're only going to develop in the city, then they should go, be done, and then the rest of the town is secure.
Thank you.
My name is Dean Danner, W269 S2360 Creek Drive. I listened to all this last week. I've listened to a lot this week. And quite frankly, I don't understand those that are against changing it to include as much of the town as possible. There is no requirement to annex. There is no, you're going to have to annex if your well fails. You could drill a deeper well. All this is doing is giving you a little bit more options, one more option. Does it affect the ability to drill wells, for the city to drill wells in the town? Doesn't affect it at all. It has nothing to do with it. If they want to drill wells in the town, they're going to drill wells in the town. Does it affect the water service agreement as to whether they'll get it or not? Town of Waukesha doesn't affect whether they'll get the water service agreement or not from the Great Lakes. They got the town of Genesee included, town of Delafield. Town of Waukesha is just a little bit more land. So I'll ask the supervisors, all of you, is the current service area that you've designated fair to all concerned? Or is it arbitrary, possibly capricious? All those that want to be in the service area, why can't they be? Sure, there's some of you that don't want to be in the service area. Fine, you don't want to be in it. I don't see any problem with that either. But those of us that want to be in it, why can't we be? My house is 300 feet from the city. but I'm not included in the water service area. But areas farther than that from the city are in your arbitrary water service area. Supervisors, please reconsider. Give us the option. We're citizens of this town. We have the right to make choices for ourselves and not be forced out of one of our options. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?